Hi, welcome back to Leetcode. So in this video, I am going to discuss the first problem from today's weekly contest 490. So the first problem is find the score difference in a game. So this problem actually kind of you have to just follow the actual statement and you have to honor that and kind of straightforward. Okay, you don't have to think something complex, which data structure I have to use, how we have to use. Okay, so let's see what is the problem statement. So you are given an integer array nums where nums I represent the points scored in the ith game. Okay, there are exactly two players. Initially, the first player is active and the second player is inactive. Okay, so that means suppose we actually have two player. Player one is active and player two actually inactive kind of. Okay, at a time only one player will be active, another player will be inactive, right? So the following rules apply sequentially for each game I. The following rules apply sequentially for each game I. So that means we can actually have 5 games. Okay, so in the first game, what actually I will follow? I will check that if nums of I, that means the score in the ith game, nums of I indicates the what is nums I? Nums I represent the points scored in the ith game. So that means if nums of I is odd, okay, that means 1, 3, 5, something like that, then the active and inactive players swipe roles. That means suppose player 1 actually is active and player 2, that time it will be inactive, right? Because at a time only one player will be active. Okay, now if suppose nums of I, suppose the current score value is odd, kind of odd, then what will happen that I will actually swap the role. That means player 1 will be now inactive and player 2 will be now active. Clear? That means they're trying so that the active and inactive players swipe roles. Okay, now second, this rule will apply sequentially, right? The first I will check that this score actually is odd or not. If it is odd, then actually I will swipe the players inactive to active and active to inactive. Okay, then I'll check that the second rule actually I will check that in every sixth game, that means 6th, 12th, 18th, in this event or in this game, I'll check that the game active and inactive players swipe roles again sequentially. First I will try to apply this rule 1, then actually I will come to this rule 2 in this way. So for every 6th game, 12th game, 18th game, in this way actually I will actually change the swipe role. Means I will change the active players. If currently suppose player 1 is active, I will change this to inactive, and player 2 is actually suppose inactive, I will actually make this actually active. Correct? This is a rule 2. The next rule is the active players plays the ith game and gains nums I point. That means now after this rule number 1 and rule number 2, I'll actually have fixed that who is actually active and who is actually inactive. Okay, now they said that whatever actually the active player, they will actually gain this score, this much of score. So what will be the score? It will be added the nums of I. Correct? So this will be added to the active player. Suppose player 1 is active, so it will be added to the player 1. Okay, now we have to return the score difference, defined as the first player's total score minus the second player total score. Suppose this example 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So first we know that by default P1 will be active, player 1, and player 2 will be inactive. Correct? This is by default. And the score of player 1, it is 0. Score of player 2, it is 0. Okay. Now also what is the other things we need? We need to know that this game actually 6th game or not. Correct? So that's I actually know. I will take one variable, that game number. Suppose it actually 0. Correct? So first of all, I'll come to this first game number 1. First of all, I'll increase the game number plus plus. Correct? Because this is the next new number I'm going to actually play. So that's why now our game number will be 1. Correct? Now I'll check that this actually, check the rule number 1. Rule 1. Rule number said that this nums of I, that means nums of 0, is it actually odd? Is it odd? Yes, because the value it is actually here actually 1. So 1 is odd, yes, that is true. So I'll swap the roles, right? So by default, initially our player 1 is active and player 2 was actually inactive. So now after rule 1, player 2 will be now inactive and player 2 will be now active. Correct? I'll swap the role. Next, I'll come to rule number 2. I'll check the rule number 2. Rule number 2. What is the rule number 2? Rule number 2 said that this actually it is sixth game or not. So how should you know that this is sixth game? So that means if game number modulo of 6 equals to 0, that means it is actually sixth number of game. That means it will be 6, 12, 18 in this way, right? So if it is actually true, but what is the game number? Game number is 1. 1 modulo 6 equals to 0. No. So rule number 2 is not applicable now. So I'll come to actually rule 3. Sequentially, I'll actually apply these 3 rules sequentially. Now in rule number 3, what actually I have to check? I mentioned that I know who is the ultimately who is the player who is actually active and which player actually is actually inactive. So from here actually you can say that player 1 actually it is actually inactive, alright, and player 2 it is actually active, correct? Then they mentioned that whatever the score actually I have, that means nums of 0, this score will be added to the active player. So who is the active player? Player 2, right? So this nums of 0, that means 1, it will be added to player 2. So score of player 2, it will be added by 1, right? Currently it is now 1. Score of player 2, correct? Clear? This is the when it is game number 1. Now I'll come to next game number 2. So first of all, again I'll actually increase the game number. So it will be now 2. Again I'll come to check that it is possible to apply the rule number 1 or not. So condition is that this is odd. No, this is not odd. So I'll actually come to the rule number 2. Rule number 1 is not applicable here. So I'll actually come to rule number 2. So rule number 2 mention that is this a sixth game? No. So that means rule number 2 is also not applicable. So I'll come to directly rule number 3. So rule number 3, who is actually the active player? Player 2 is the active player. So whatever the score actually I have currently, it will be gained to the player 2. Correct? So again, this score 2 will be added to player 2. So score of player 2 now it is 3. 1 plus 2. This is clear. Why actually it will be added to player 2? Clear? Next, I go to next game. So game number will be increased by 1. So now it is actually third game, right? Now come to the actually rule number 1. So current score value or nums of I, it is actually odd. What is the current score? Current score is actually 3, right? 3 is odd. Yes, this is odd. So this will be actually change the active and inactive players. So previously player 1 actually it is inactive and player 2 is actually active. So now player 2 means player 2 will be now active and player 2 will be now inactive, correct? Just check why, because you can see that in the previous game player 1 actually inactive and player 2 it is actually active. So now to change that, player 1 is now active and player 2 it is now inactive, correct? Because this is actually odd value. Next we'll come to the check the rule number 2. Rule number 2 said that is actually sixth game or not. So is this actually sixth game? No, this is third game. So I cannot actually change the active and inactive players. So I'll come to actually rule number 3. What is rule number 3? Rule number 3 is that I'll actually add the score to the active player. So who is the active player? So player 1 actually active and player 2 it is now inactive. So this score 3 will be whatever the nums of I, it is 3, score is 3. It will be added to which player? It will be added to player 1. So it will be added to player 1. Score of P1 will be increased by 3. So finally the score of player 1 it is 3 and also the score of player 2 it is 3. Clear? Now ultimately what I have to return? Score of P1 minus score of P2. So ultimately 3 minus 3 it is 0. Clear? Let's check the expected output. Yes, it is actually expected output for the example 1 it is 0. This is clear? This is clear, right? Why actually the output is 0 and how actually I'm going to follow or trying to apply the rules here. So that means this is just straightforward. You just follow whatever they are trying to say. Something like we actually know, we have to somehow know that who is the current active player and who is the inactive player. So that's why I need actually two variable for player 1 and player 2, because there is only two fixed number of players, player 1 and player 2. So by default I will mark this player 1 as a active and player 2 as a inactive. Just follow the code here actually. So here actually you can see that if player 1 actually by default it will be on, means active, so that's why 1 indicates that this player actually currently active, and player 2 it is 0 initially, so that means this player is currently inactive. Okay, and also I have to return the total score of player 1 minus total score of player 2. So that's why I needed two variable for the score, to calculate the score of player 1 and score the to store the total score of the player 2. So that's why score 1 it indicates the score of the player 1, so initially it is 0, and this code 2 indicates the score of the player 2, initially it is also 0. Clear? And also I have to know for this rule number 2, this is actually 6th game or not, right? So that's why I have to take another variable that which how much game actually I have actually played till now. So that's why initialized 1. That means this is going to start with 1, first game, second game, in this way. Correct? So these 5 variables we need. Correct? And now we just iterate the score nums array. That means I'll first play the game number 1, then actually I will play the game number 2 in this way. So first I'll play the game number 1. Okay, so that time first what I have to check, I have to check the rule number 1. They mentioned that this rule will be applicable sequentially, right? So that's why first I'll check this rule number 1. Just see, this is rule number 1. So what is rule number 1? They mentioned that the score terms of pi is actually odd or not. So if it is odd, then I have to do something. So that's why I'll check that if current score modulo of 2 equals to 1, that means this is actually odd. That time what I have to do, I'll actually swipe the roles. So player 1 will be now, if it is actually active, so it will be now inactive, and player 2 if it is actually inactive, so it will be now active, right? Just reverse also possible. So that's why player 1 will be now 1 minus player 1. So previously it is 0, suppose, so 1 minus 0, it is now 1. That indicates that this is actually now active. 1 indicates this player actually active, 0 indicates that this is not active. Okay? And player 2 previously, suppose it is actually active, so the player 2 initial value, suppose the current value is 1. So 1 minus 1, it is now 0. Got it? How shall I use this? Okay, this is for rule number 1. Next I have to apply the rule number 2. So what is rule number 2? So in every 6th game I have to do something. So how I should know that this is actually 6th game? So that will be know that if I do the modulo of 6, if it is 0, that means this is actually 6th game. That time I have to do something. So that's why game modulo of 6 equals to 0. That means this is 6th number of game. So that time again I will actually swipe the rules. It may possible that rule 1 and rule 2 both are actually applicable at the same time, means in the same game. Suppose 5th game or 6th game, we can actually apply both rule number 1 and rule number 2. So that will be applicable. That is possible actually, and also valid. So that time again actually I will actually call this swipe function again. If player 1 actually active, now 1 minus 1 0, and player 2 actually suppose inactive, so 1 minus 0, it is now 1. That means this is actually active. Clear? Next I will actually check that rule number 3. That means whoever the active player, current score will be added to that. So if player 1 actually it is active, that means its value will be 1. So that time if a clause will be true, this if block, it will be executed. So this score current I, it will be added to the score 1 if player 1 actually active. Else I know that there is only 2 players, so else actually it is, that means player 2 is active, so that score, current score, will be added to the score 2, that means player 2. Got it? Before going to the next game, I will increase the game number because I have already played this. Next game actually possibilities, it is 2 in this way. Got it? So in this I will check all the games and ultimately store the score for the player 1 and player 2. Okay? Now I have to return they mentioned that we have to return the score difference. Score 1 minus score 2. Got it? It may be negative, it may be positive, it may be 0. Both are possible. Right? So here for this example 1, it is now 0, and for example 2 it is 4, and for example 3 it is minus 1. It is possible. All are actually valid. Got it? So only time constraint for this. So here you can see that we are actually iterating the on the input array nums. So it will, suppose there are actually n games, so it will take big of n, and whatever actually we have done inside this all actually constant. All right, constant time. So ultimate time velocity for this approach, it will be big of n. N is the number of games actually I have. Clear? So if you have any doubt, any suggestion, please comment on that. And also, if you like the video, please like the video, and if not subscribe, please subscribe channel. It motivates me to actually keep videos on this, actually all the problems actually. Okay, bye bye, see you in the next video.